Arrow Season 5, Episode 2, Recruits. Or The Recruits, sorry. I like this one. You know, I mentioned in the premiere, I was like, I'm actually excited to see where they take this season. I like what they did with this episode as well. I don't mind the new team. The only person on the new team that I don't particularly care for is Evelyn, and that's only because she's taking over as the new Black Canary. That's the only reason I don't actually like her character. It's like, it's not her, it's not the actress or anything like that. It's the fact that she's taking over the Black Canary route, and it's like, oh, if she was like just a totally new character, and you know, they pulled a different name from the Arrowverse. Like if they made her another Archer or something, like if they made her Artemis, that would have been awesome. I would have been like, you know what, that's super cool. They brought in a new version. There's a lot of Artemis stuff that I know mostly from Young Justice, so there would have to be a lot of extra depth to her for me to really appreciate the fact that they brought her in as Artemis. But they kind of just throw the names out there as far as, you know, the Arrow sidekicks, because they did Red Arrow and Arsenal for Roy, and Thea has Speedy, so it kind of doesn't matter when they do the names for like the sidekicks. So I wouldn't hate it. You know, I would have been like, that's actually kind of awesome. We got a new Archer. It's not like The Flash where we already have a bunch of speedsters. It's like, no, it's actually kind of cool. So her taking over as Black Canary is the only issue I honestly have. I like the other characters, you know, Curtis. I don't know what they're going to do for him as far as giving him a costume and stuff like that. But I'm excited to see what they do with him. And then we already have Wild Dog, who, you know, they kind of showed off in this episode. He actually does parkour. So he's like running across rooftops. And he was doing some Jason Todd, like some Red Hood stuff where he was like shooting two guns at this dude trying to kill him. So I was like, okay, he's like the dark vigilante. He was about to be the splatted vigilante because he couldn't even parkour over a building and he tripped and he almost died. I was like, dang, he almost, if Oliver wasn't trying to recruit them and he wasn't like searching for him, he would have fallen and like died. He would have broken his neck and been a dead man on the ground. So that was interesting, like an interesting way for him to get recruited where he just ends up getting saved. But I like the characters. I actually like them, and you know, we actually get to see them as a team, you know, early on in this episode, or like halfway through the episode. And I was like, alright, this actually worked. It was very simple. It was Oliver, you know, doing his thing, which I have to bring this up before I forget it, but where was he at during the little scene when they're in the hospital? How did he get in the costume that fast? Because they're going through, he just came through, he talks to the girl like, oh, I had experience with broken bones, you'll be fine. And then, you know, he goes through, he goes off, which, this is another thing, I was like, he went off like 5 feet, it was like, check the perimeter and stuff. I'm like, they couldn't like turn left and see that he's, you know, doing the voice into his arm. So, I was like, that scene should have been a little obvious, he shouldn't have done that just right in front of them. And then, like, less than a minute later, Ragman shows up, and then it's like, what do we do? Oh, he's here. How is he, like, is he transforming now? Because that was insane. I was like, first off, how did he get away from his detail? Like, I know that's the thing, but not in 2.5 seconds he doesn't. How does he change? Even if he got away from them, I guess if he's wearing the suit, I mean, he could only be wearing, like, the chest piece and the pants underneath the suit. Like, that's the only thing he could possibly be wearing. And I guess technically he could be wearing, like, the gauntlets and everything. The only thing he'd be missing were, like, the gloves. Which I don't think he has gloves anymore, it's just the gauntlets. But the only thing he'd be missing would be like the hood and the headband. But it's like, where did he do that so fast that it was just like, oh, he's here. Green Arrow. He was in a suit and everything, and then poof, he's in costume. So I didn't like that. I was like, there either should have been an explanation, or it should have been a longer scene maybe, where he's like, oh crap, I'm in front of everyone, let me bolt. And then he comes back as Green Arrow, but it was just like Ragman showed up, which was actually a pretty cool scene when he like threw the woman on the ground. The way she slid into the wall and the way he lifted her up, I was like, that's actually really cool. It looked like it kind of looked like a camera trick where they show people like crawling on walls, but they're just walking on the floor. It's just, you know, sideways. It kind of looked like that, the way she hit the wall, and then he instantly, like the way he lifted her up was like at a perfect 90-degree angle with, you know, how they did the wire work. And I was like, that actually looked kind of cool because she like slid perfectly into the wall, and then, you know, she just went perfectly straight up. So I was like, that actually looked kind of sweet. But the way they did it was just insane. The way he showed up as Green Arrow just in an instant. I was like, that shouldn't have happened that way. That was way too fast. But I was still fine with it. I thought Ragman was pretty interesting as a character. Started off seemingly as a villain, and then we find out some extra stuff that this young guy was actually saved by his father during the nuclear explosion that Damien Dark sent out. And I don't know, I have to assume, based on the introduction of this character and the speech that he gave to this woman, that he's going to find out Felicity ultimately made the decision to, switch the nuke and send it to somewhere with, way less people, because that was the whole thing about it. But she had to make that decision, like the lives of, it was like the lives of like 3 million compared to the lives of 1 million or something like that. So it's like, he already put that blame on the woman who worked at the company that made the missiles and not Damien Dark. So, what in the world is he going to think of the woman that actually made the decision to change the course of the missile? Because none of those people knew that the missile was going somewhere else, and then it was changed to kill, or to land in this different town. They don't know that. It was just like, oh, this nuke just landed on us, and it killed all these people. I'm the only person left from my hometown. So, at some point, I have to assume he's gonna find out that Felicity was the one that changed the direction, and he's gonna switch that blame from the woman that worked on the missile. I would assume she was like the head of it, because she was like the face of the company. So, he's going to change his aggression from that, which he did even at the end of the episode when he saved Oliver. But he'll change his aggression from that to Felicity, who changed the direction and was like technically the ultimate factor in deciding that his home would be destroyed. So, I don't know if he's going to make it this whole season, or if he does, he's going to turn into a villain. And he'll be a villain, kind of down the line. But I like his character so far. He seems nice. Oliver makes up the crazy plan of losing. I can't think of the main villain's name right now, but he ends up losing to him. And when I was watching that scene, I was like, dang, that guy actually beat him up. I was surprised. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I'd let him win. I was like, oh, well, that's actually not as cool. He didn't really need help. He just made it seem like he did. And I was like, oh, I actually would have preferred it if he went up against someone who just kind of actually beat him. Especially if it was someone who just did hand-to-hand combat. I would actually have been super impressed. But then it was like, yeah, I let it seem like I needed help because I put faith in him, and that'll let me know that he's a useful asset. He's worth adding to the team. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, kind of takes away from the epicness of that villain, but I guess that's cool. It was still fine. But we have Ragman on the team. We have the rest of the team, and we're gonna get to see them all work together in this next episode, which I'm excited to see how their first official mission plays out. Something will go wrong. I have to assume. Like, they did like the minor issue in this episode. It was like, oh, we weren't supposed to attack or anything, and if I didn't know, we wouldn't have had this evidence and stuff like that. But so I feel like something much worse is going to happen in the next episode, and that should be interesting. The whole thing, we get to see Oliver trying to teach them teamwork, which I figured that out early on. I was like, the whole point is you work together as a team. Maybe it's because of anime, because when they first did it, I'm a big Naruto fan, so it made me think of like the first season of Naruto. That was like the first thing I thought. I was like, oh, instead of ringing the bell, they have to grab these bells off of their sensei's like actual belt. But it was kind of the same concept. It was like you're supposed to work together, and that's pretty much how you succeed. And then we get the flashback where that happens, and I was like, okay, so Oliver figured it out, and he's helping the people and stuff. And he comes up with the ultimate idea. Hey, we steal them all left. One of us can get to the bell, and that's how we win. And he rings the bell, and it's like, all right, they worked together, they did it. And then 3 gunshots go off, and that actually surprised me. I really didn't expect that. Like, I know the whole thing was like, oh, the only person you can trust is yourself. But I was just like, wow, I didn't think they'd take it that far. It was like, yep, he rang the bell, so the 3 of them die. And it's just like, wow, that really sucked. It really shocked me, though. So I was actually happy that it was such a crazy surprise to me, because I was like, holy crap. Like, I didn't think they'd actually kill these guys off. I just thought, they'd win. They worked together. That was the whole point. And then the 3 guys can get killed off. And Oliver's just like, I never would have done that if I knew, that it would cost them their lives. So of course he doesn't take that route with his new teammates, but I like what they did with it. I thought that was a cool little thing. Um, and, you know, and I actually thought it was interesting that they don't figure it out. Like, he has to tell Curtis, like, that was the point of this. It was, you know, teamwork. And then that goes into, you know, maybe we realize that, or, you know, things would just be so different if you trusted us. And there was a lot of good depth to what they did. I thought Curtis had a great monologue in this episode. Um, the moment where Oliver and Felicity were talking, where Oliver is actually pretty honest. He's just like, you know, I wasn't protecting them, I was protecting myself because I don't want to be hurt. I was like, that's surprisingly open for Oliver. So that was another thing that actually made me like the episode. It wasn't like, you know, Green Arrow. That was just Oliver. It's like, I didn't want them to know who I was. I don't want to get too attached to them. And kind of like Curtis mentions, it's like, you know, they trusted you and that's why they stood by you. And then he's like, oh, but they didn't, and that's why they left. So they actually had some great lines in this episode that I personally appreciated a lot. I thought it was really in-depth stuff about Oliver himself and how he truly feels, where it's like he does feel pain of his friends leaving and stuff like that. As little as he admits it, he does feel that stuff. So every time we get a glimpse of that, I always love it. It's like, all right, he's opening up like a tiny bit. He even mentions, you know, the stuff about being in Russia, and Felicity's like, oh, you never talk about, you know, your time in Russia. So he got personal in this, and I like when they do that. I think it was actually done well, because it can be, you know, I can't think of a time where it was wrong, but it can be personal and then not, you know, matter. But I think the way they did it, where it wasn't just about Oliver, it's about Oliver and then the city and these three people who want to help the city and want to join him to help the city because they know he's the best person to do it. But at the same time, it's like, as much as we want to help the city, you kind of suck, and we still, you know, like, we can't even help the city because you're in the way. So I like the way they kind of played around with that idea in this episode. So really love that. Then we have our other story, like super mini story with Quentin. I like what they did with that too, because it seems like, you know, it was kind of sad to watch him in this episode. Like, he, you know, he was like fidgeting around. It seemed like he was more on drugs than he was an alcoholic, to be totally honest. He's like fidgeting and stuff, and he's like, yeah, you know, sorry I'm late, and he's doing like that fake nervous laughter thing. And I was like, I actually really love this. Like, I always love Lance. I was thinking that as I was watching, I was like, man, I just love his character. Like, highs and lows, every time I watch him, I'm just like, it's entertaining. The actor, I like the actor, and just the way they do his character, I think has always been amazing throughout the whole series. So, you know, they're kind of, you know, building him back up. You know, he lost his daughter. They had that emotional scene with him and Thea, and she's talking to him, and he's trying to hold back the tears. I was like, this is just a great scene. So, they, like I said, they had a ton of great scenes in this episode to me. But I'm excited to see where they take his character. You know, they want to give him a reason to be sober. They want to give him, you know, something to really do to honor his daughter and to be the man that, you know, we've seen him be in previous seasons. And I'm excited for that. So I can't wait to see, you know, what they do with his character. And then the other, you know, I guess, you know, if we split into our three little stories, our third story, I don't know what the heck they're doing with Diggle. I don't know if his story is going to stay in Afghanistan or well, they're not in Afghanistan, they're in Latvia. So I don't know if that's where their story is going to stay or what the heck is happening. But basically, he goes in, all his people get killed. That was a big thing in this episode. It was like, you know, they totally could have lived, but yeah, we're villains, so, you know, we'll just kill these random people off. So Diggle is left alone. They write the fake note and everything of him stealing the missile, which I don't know how that's supposed to play out when the dude is like zip tied to a column. Like, what are they gonna say? Like, oh yeah, we busted him, but we lost the missile. That's probably what they're gonna say, actually. But I mean, he's supposed to get court-martialed and stuff like that, so I would assume that that's how he's gonna end up back in the States. But I don't know. That would be really cool if that's how they did his story, where he actually did his own storyline away from everybody else, and it was just him and Latvia trying to figure out, how do I stop these people and get this missile back, or, you know, destroy the missile and everything. So, not sure where they're taking it. It seems like an obvious route where it's like, oh, he's getting court-martialed, he'll be back in the States. But honestly, I would not hate it if he had his own storyline for like most of the season, where he was just on the other side of the planet doing his own thing, trying to be a hero. I would not hate that whatsoever. But it was great to even see Diggle in this episode actually have a main story. He didn't have like the little appearance. He had a main part in this episode, so I love that. Don't know if they're gonna end up blending the stories together, where he does, like I said, come back to the States, or if he'll just stay in Latvia. But I like what they started with. It was simple enough, and it was like, all right, we got the missile. We're using you as our, our scapegoat, and then they kind of just leave him alive because they need him as the scapegoat. So I don't know if it's going to be the simple court martial. That's the plan. But he'd also have to go to prison for something crazy like that. That's not just a court martial. Like, you're going to prison. You tried to, you stole a missile, a nuclear weapon, to use, for yourself. So in that situation, it's not like, oh, you're court martialed, get out of the army. Like, you're court martialed, go to prison, probably Guantanamo Bay, which is real bad. So don't know where they're taking it, but I wouldn't hate it. Honestly, I would love to see him have his own storyline the whole season. But we'll have to see where it goes. I'm excited to see all the little storylines that they've introduced. Of course, the new team dynamic. Maybe we'll get to see Thea kind of come back in a couple episodes like we did in the last one, where she will show up every once in a while as Speedy to help out the team. And who knows? Maybe Diggle will come back. He'll be Spartan. We'll have like a a 5-member team again, or a 6-member team actually. So I wouldn't hate that. That would be pretty awesome. And every once in a while, Flash comes in. We're gonna have our like super epic 4-series crossover. I have no idea what's supposed to happen with that, but we already got like 8 people in Legends of Tomorrow, and now we have like 6 people in Arrow. So I don't know how many characters are supposed to be in this crossover, but that should be something. Whenever they get to that, I assume it'll be like kind of halfway through the seasons, but that should be something, once that shows up. But really enjoyed this episode, of course. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And now that we have this new team dynamic, I want to know what you guys think about it. Do you like the new members? Do you not like the new members? We know Curtis is like, at this point, he's my favorite new character because I really like Curtis. And I'm curious to see how he transitions from just Curtis to being the superhero side of it. And then, we met Evelyn, and like I mentioned, the only reason I don't like her is because she's taking over for Laurel's thing, and I just really like that. I know a lot of people probably don't care because a lot of people were already mad because Sarah wasn't, Black Canary anymore, so that, I understood, but that's the only thing about her. I don't mind her character. It's seriously just, she's taking over Laurel's thing, and it's like, I don't know if I'm okay with that. That's a super nerd issue, but that's just me. Wild Dog, actually, he's obviously the wild card, but I don't mind him. Ragman, I don't think will be in it too much. I think he'll be every once in a while because he actually has superpowers. So unfortunately, I don't think they'll be utilizing him every episode like they easily could, which is really unfortunate, but I don't think he'll be in every episode. I'd love to be wrong about that because I would love it if they just were like, hey, you got superpowers, just help. Because it's dumb not to do that, but it's also TV, and they don't want to make things too easy. It always has to be crazy and difficult and stuff. So we'll see where it goes. But I want to know what you guys think about the new characters for the team, the new team dynamic in general, where you guys think it might be headed, and of course what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.